The lead light's not on.
It's going.
It is? Okay. Hi, I'm Derrick Barnsdale. I'm going to talk to you about business crisis planning. President Eisenhower said that he found in preparing for a battle that plans were useless, but the planning was indispensable. So the first thing that you have to do is create a communication plan. And then your executive team of any organization has to be involved in this. You can't outsource it, because when you outsource it, your executive team can rubber stamp it, put it away, and not have experience in what needs to be done. And in a time of a crisis, time is of vital importance, and you don't need to be reading through a manual. You need to be able to react. The other thing is you have to create a team. You have to say who is going to be the face of the organization at the time of crisis. Who's going to be speaking to the public? You also have to have somebody who's going to be monitoring social media and mainstream media and people who are going to be gathering facts, because the facts and good information is essential to be able to deliver your message. Because with bad facts will cause you a ton of damage. Okay, so in creating a plan, you've got to think of a lot of questions. You know, what does your organization do so that you can try to plan for possible eventualities of what could happen. The current going theory is called situational crisis communication theory. It was created by Tim Coombs of the Eastern Illinois University. And what he says is that in the time of a crisis is always a negative event. In a negative event, people are always going to do two things. They're going to stop and try to evaluate what happened. You know, what happened to them, what is the problem? And the second thing they're always going to do is they're going to try to assign blame. They're going to try and figure out whose fault it is. They're going to always point a finger, and that's human nature. The organization, at the time of crisis, needs to evaluate what its role is. Okay? Are they the victim? Okay? Is this a victim of a terrorist attack, or an arsonist, or sabotage of some way? Is it a event that came about because of weather, or some sort of something that humans, did not cause? You talk about earthquakes and hurricanes, things like that. Or is it a preventable action? Something that the company knew about, could have taken actions to prevent it, and failed to do so. And there are two things that can intensify the problem of a crisis. One, does the organization have a history of the problems? This is like the third oil spill in X amount of years, or something like that. Or what is the organization's role in the community? Does it have a bad reputation already? If you add that to something that was preventable, you could have a huge PR nightmare. So what is an organization supposed to do in the event of a disaster? Independent of what role the company has in the disaster, whether it's an accident or whatever, the first thing they need to do is to make sure that they can prevent any harm coming from anybody else. The second thing they need to do is to make sure that they can help people cope with the problem that has happened. And lastly, they need to express sympathy to the public so that the public knows that the company cares. And this can't be false. In fact, Tony Hayward, who was the who was the CEO of British Petroleum, didn't do any of those things during the BP oil spill. In fact, he gave out misinformation, and he constantly tried to push the blame of what was happening off onto other contractors or weather or whatnot. And he caused tons of damage that they're still trying to recover from. In fact, he gave misinformation. He said that 5,000 barrels of oil was going into the Gulf per hour, when in actuality it was more like 60,000. And they were destroyed on social media because of that, because of the misinformation that they had given. And a company, obviously one of the main roles in your communication plan is having somebody to watch social media so that you can see what the public is thinking, what they know, and what they want to know. Okay? And you can address rumors and challenges and complaints. Obviously people are going to be complaining during an event. Okay, so some advice on how to react to social media is you need to be seen. You need to be able to put out good information on your website or your blog or whatever, so that the public knows what's going on and that it looks like you are doing something. So you're showing that you're doing something. Secondly, you need to go to where the action is. If people are complaining and they're talking about the event, you need to be there to see what they're saying, so that you can put out your own message. And when you do that, you need to engage. You need to be part of the conversation and not intimidate. You don't go to the board or wherever it is that you're talking about the problem and say, hey, we've got 10 lawyers and we're going to sue your butt off if you keep saying these things about us. You need to be able to engage and discuss what's going on, so that most of the time you can alleviate issues. Lastly, you need to be transparent. When you go to those boards, you have to identify yourself. You have to make sure that nobody thinks that the company is planting people out there to try and alleviate the message. You need to be part of that. So you say who you are, and then you give out the message. And lastly, don't talk more than you listen. You don't try and dominate the entire conversation. You give good information, and then you let it come through. If you dominate it, you're going to give a bad message. Okay, so lastly, every organization needs to build a plan. You have to have a good team, and you have to show concern and monitor social media. Thank you very much. Turn around one time, make sure that nobody left. Thank you.